Kia ora and greetings from Aotearoa, New Zealand. Today is July 21st, 2023. My name is Billy Te Kahika and I am the producer, writer, director and front person of a very important and necessary project for New Zealand called The River of Lies, the New Zealand Scamdemic Investigative documentary. As the title may suggest, this documentary project is a deep dive into the previous 3 years in New Zealand that we've lived through, dealing with and coping with the New Zealand government's COVID-19 health response and its draconian law, also titled the COVID-19 Public Health Response Act. The past 3 years in New Zealand have been like nothing I could have ever imagined. I just turned 51 years of age 2 days ago, and to say that New Zealand is a very, very different place to what it was even just 3.5 years ago, let alone decades ago, is not adequate to capture how different New Zealand has become. When I reflect on what all of New Zealand has been through, I can only come up with the opinion that our country has been harmed in a very deep and significant way. New Zealand used to be famous for being a country of critical thinkers, of good people. We used to have something called the Fair Kiwi Shake or the Fair Kiwi Deal. And we also had people that were fairly and mostly accepting, not just tolerant, but accepting that other people could have different views of a kind without the need to have to diminish you for having a different opinion, let alone slander you or segregate you out of my life because you've got a different opinion to me. What we've seen in the last few decades, and I guess emphasized during the past 3 years, is a strategy to divide New Zealand into two groups: those that believe the COVID-19 narrative and those who love the current Labour government of New Zealand, and basically those who don't believe what the government has taught us about COVID-19 and don't trust them. The importance of this documentary is that it's aimed to be a tool for anybody at either end of the spectrum that I've just referred to. It's going to be a tool where people, if they're intellectually honest, are going to be able to look at it, look at the content, look at the evidence of what we are going to present to you, and are going to be able to make some informed judgment calls about the behaviour of the New Zealand Labour government. But what we want to do is, with this documentary, is to be able to help people see through propaganda and actually look at some hardcore facts and realities. And the way that we've structured this documentary is to work through all of the issues and the claims that the government has made, and we're going to look at everything from the story that they told us around how deadly the disease is, that it's the most, deadliest disease that we've seen since the 1918 Spanish flu, and that if you get it, you could die, which was a huge, huge part of the narrative of fear here in New Zealand and around the world, of course. We are also going to really examine some of the other claims around mask use, the polymerase chain reaction test, the PCR test, and the cycle thresholds that the New Zealand government has used to substantiate their claims that we're dealing with a pandemic. We're going to look at social distancing. We're going to look at lockdowns. We're going to look at the Public Health Response Act. We're going to look at testimonies, witness testimonies, expert testimonies from people that really are either the leading people of their fields from all around the world, including in New Zealand, or they have lived through an experience of dealing with the after effects and consequences of believing what the New Zealand government has claimed and said, and believing that by obeying the government that they are contributing to the greater good. What we want to achieve out of this is that hopefully we can not only wake people up to the great manipulation that we've been involved in and with, but also wake us all up to the broader and wider picture of the reality that we're dealing with today, and that is, it doesn't matter if you're left or you're right on the political spectrum or ideological spectrum, because what is coming for humanity is going to impact everybody, regardless of your position. One of the key phrases that the New Zealand government used in its campaign of manipulation is be kind. Another one is do it for the team of 5 million. Do it for your family. Do it for your community. Do it for your country. And you know what I'm talking about. Receive the jab. Wear your mask. Lockdown. Stay home. Obey us. We are the single source of truth. So don't even try to negotiate that, because if you do, you are a bad person. What astounds me in the last 3 years, though, is how willing New Zealanders have been prepared to relinquish and let go of hard fought for and died and bled for civil liberties and freedoms. But I think what that does, it attests to the intense mass formation, psychological manipulation that we've all been through. And the campaign of fear, the campaign of virtue signaling, of putting out there that unless you go with the government's COVID-19 narrative, then you're just not a good person. And what that does is it makes everybody think, well, gee, I just better not question anything, and I better go with the narrative and just go along with it, because I'm not a bad person and I want to be seen as a good person. So again, back to the documentary, what we want to do is totally look at all of these issues that we've lived through for these past 3 years. We also want to look at the actors and players involved in propagating this campaign of fear, this campaign of misinformation and disinformation. One of the clever things the New Zealand government did was to create something that they called the Disinformation Project, where they created a straw man argument and a straw man fake sense of reality and truth, whereas they redefined truth to say that what they are propagating is the truth and that they are the single source of truth.
Any rumour you may hear, covid19.govt.nz. Otherwise, dismiss anything else. We will continue to be your single source of truth.
And if you don't agree with them, then you fall into the category of the nut job, tinfoil hat wearing, conspiracy, nut job, echo chamber dweller, superhero costume wearing, insane individual. And they did it in such a way where they used the media, they used press releases, they used documentaries, they used everything that they could through the Disinformation Project, which was funded directly by the New Zealand Prime Minister's office, pretty similar to how Hitler funded Joseph Goebbels' Ministry of Propaganda. And what they did is that they used the Disinformation Project to set up these straw man arguments to propagate this mythology that if you do not accept what they say, you're the bad person and you're insane. But what we are going to reveal in this documentary is the psychology that they have applied to rolling out that part of the campaign. Because just like they've used the PCR test, just like they've used the injection, just like they've used multiple aspects of the medical rollout to subject and subdue people to their narrative, they have been equally as violent, and I'm going to use their term because they claim ideology is violence if it doesn't agree with them, but they've used violence and ideology against you, against me, against us in New Zealand, so that they've very, very cunningly used an argument that if you don't agree with them, then they will identify you if you have any type of public profile, and then they will use the New Zealand mainstream media to slander you and to diminish you and attack your credibility. But the interesting thing is that the Disinformation Project never, ever, ever deals with the actual claims that people with concerns have made. What they do is they use their straw man argument I just referred to as a way of saying, well, if you don't agree with us, you're just a nut job. You're a conspiracy theorist. You're a conspiracy nut job. And that's their fallback position, but they never, ever deal with the issues. Now, it's that old saying, playing the man and not the ball. And so we've seen this time and time again in New Zealand. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at what they've done to create their straw man argument, how they've managed to create such fear amongst the population that not only about COVID, but the fear of being seen to disagree with them, because that's the mass formation, terrifying manipulation that they were able to successfully ensconce into New Zealand society, that unless you agreed with them, you were a river of filth. Now, interestingly enough, as we go through the documentary, we're going to be speaking to psychologists, psychiatrists, we're going to be speaking to people, legal experts, that are going to shine the light on what these people are saying and basically present evidence to you that what they're saying is either total misinformation, disinformation, or just a plain lie. Or number 4, I guess, as an extra option, or just an ideological manipulation to get you to obey and submit yourself to the COVID-19 narrative. Now, this is an exciting thing. We have filmed over 1,800 minutes worth of interviews. We were originally going to do a 2-hour documentary in just one episode, but we have now decided that we're going to have 3. Episode 1, we're going to be looking at all of the claims made, the central claims made by the government, such as what I was referring to before, infection fatality rate and deadliness of the disease, social distancing, marks, the PCR test reliability, and propaganda. We're going to be looking at lockdowns, elimination strategy, all of those types of issues. And we're going to examine whether they based their propaganda, was it based on truth? Was it based on accurate, precise, honest science? Or was it based on a lie and a propaganda ideal? Investigate what we're saying for yourself. Look at both sides of the fence line. The problem is we've only had one side of the argument and not the other. And what this documentary is going to do is give you the opportunity to look at both sides of the coin so that you can make a more informed decision about what we've been through. Because the government, instead of backing back and saying, look, we've made mistakes here, big, massive, significant mistakes, either with lockdowns, the jab, what have you, they've actually doubled down. And you've got to ask the question, where are they wanting to take us? But episode 1 is about establishing and track and tracing all of the steps leading to the rollout of the COVID-19 Comirnaty Pfizer vaccine in New Zealand. So episode 1 is about capturing the claims of the government, unpacking them, and seeing what actually lies there using accurate science and accepted science. And most of the time, we're actually using their data to contradict them. And so, again, we're not coming out wanting to tell you what to think. We want you to think for yourself. Episode 2 is going to be about the whole vaccine issue. It's going to be about the rollout of the vaccine, how the vaccine, so-called, and we all know it's not a vaccine. It just doesn't fit the criteria of what a vaccine is. But we're going to look at how it got into New Zealand. We're going to look at the role of key medical bureaucrats and ministers in the New Zealand government played in getting this provisionally approved experimental mRNA drug in New Zealand and into the arms of Kiwis, New Zealanders. We're going to look at those processes. We're going to look at witness testimony as to what people went through once they rolled up their sleeves and got the jab. We're going to look at all of it. We're going to look at the government's own documentation around adverse events. We're going to look at that. We're going to look at the strange story of how New Zealand mainstream media never really adequately covered any information contained in the New Zealand Ministry of Health's medsafe.govt.nz website's Centre for Adverse Events Reporting, how they never covered in any significant level the realities of harm in New Zealand. They not only not told people about harm, but they purposely kept any sort of information about harm away from New Zealand citizens. And why was that? So we want to look at that. We want to look at the fact that New Zealand government funded New Zealand mainstream media to roll out all of the propaganda to gain the acceptance of the vaccine into the arms of New Zealanders. So we're going to look at that. We're going to look at the developers of the mRNA technology. I interviewed Dr. Robert Malone, of course, who was one of the co-founders and inventors of the mRNA patent and technology. We're going to be interviewing him and getting his view on it. We've got Dr. Mike Yerden as well, former Pfizer scientist and vice president. We've got our own New Zealand experts like Dr. Guy Hatchard, statistician scientist, Professor Simon Thornley, one of the very top epidemiologists in New Zealand, and Dr. Remo Libro, my good friend, Dr. Rashid Buttar, and countless other people as well, doctors, physicians, GPs, you name it. But what we are going to do is that we're going to tell the story of the human story, the human side to the saga of those people that have either been harmed, hurt, or have lost loved ones due to the government rush approving and rush rolling out a never before used injection vaccine technology. That's episode 2. We'll be looking at that. We'll be looking at vaccine mandates and the effect that they have had on New Zealanders. We're also going to look at, in episode 3, we're going to be looking at the dark side of this tale. We're going to be looking at manipulation. We'll be looking at the media personalities in New Zealand, organisations such as stuff.com.nz. We're going to be looking at the New Zealand Herald. We're going to be looking at all of the media institutions that have received millions upon millions upon millions of dollars not to report the truth to New Zealand citizens. We're going to be looking at them. We're going to be looking at some of these other key figures involved in New Zealand politics, like Jacinda Ardern, Chris Hipkins, of course, Ashley Bloomfield. We're going to be looking at him. He's now working with Tedros at the World Health Organization on the international health regulations. Why? Because he basically tested some of the philosophical mechanisms of the WHO in New Zealand. He knows how it works. So he's gone there to get global acceptance of the Global Health Preparedness Treaty and also to amend and get accepted the international health regulations, the new version of it, which, if approved and accepted by nations around the world, will change the lives of New Zealand citizens and global citizens forever. So in episode 3, we're going to cover all of that. We're going to look at Bill Gates, Klaus Schwab, you name it. We're just going to go through them, and we're going to look at the connections between academia in New Zealand and also the government, medical practitioners, and the fact that we have uncovered gross and blatant conflicts of interest that have just been overlooked and swept over by media, by government, and by so-called social commentators. We're going to look at all of that stuff. And by the end of episode 3, I'm praying that you will have a very, very, very excellent toolkit to be able to help people see where this is all going, see what's happened, see where we've been, and kind of look forward to see where these people behind these issues may be wanting to take not only New Zealanders, but the rest of the world into this new great reset, into this new fourth Reich environment where everybody has a universal basic income, a central bank digital currency wallet, and 15-minute cities. We want to look at these things and see if they are connected in such a way that we can look back and say, gotcha, we've got you. We see how this is all connected. We see COVID-19, we see climate change, we see the Great Reset, and we see the Pinnacle Program agenda, UN Agenda 2030. And then once we get to that point, we may be able to see that what we've been living through, not only these past few years, but beyond that, maybe we've been living in a pantomime of a sorts, a great conspiracy that's been rolling out for a long, long time. But again, I don't want to tell people what to think or how to think, but rather present the information in a calm, clear manner that you will be able to follow very carefully. Unlike my presentation today, I'm all over the place. So forgive me, I didn't want to script this. I just wanted to speak from my heart to you, because we are very close to this episode 1 coming out, and I want you to be able to grasp it and use it as a tool. Again, what I want at the end of this project is that you've got a great toolkit that you can use to help your brothers and sisters, your mums, your dads, your friends, whoever, to wake up to the fact that we're living in thunderous times and we need to know what's happening. Because unless we're educated about these issues, they can do whatever they want to us. All right, family, as of today, I've got 10 days until I appear before the Auckland District High Court to appeal my prison sentence that I received on March the 31st, 2023 for protesting against lockdown harm. I was sentenced to prison. I don't have a criminal record. I've only ever served the community for most of my adult life, and I'm a former member of the armed services and frontline agencies in New Zealand. I've worked in the community for a long time. I'm a pastor, and yet I was sentenced by a judge to 5 months prison, which was shrunk down to and reduced to 4 months because I spent 19 days under house arrest. Now I'm appealing this sentence and also the charges themselves, the convictions, on July the 31st. All right, guys, thank you for your time today. If you like what you've heard today, please go to our website, www.riveroflies.co.nz. That is www.riveroflies.co.nz, or feel free to email me at billy, billy, at ibc.net.nz. Please email me, and you're welcome as well. If you'd like to join my weekly Bible studies at House of the Lord Ministries, please email me and let me know. You'd be more than welcome. We look at all of the end time events according to the Bible, and believe me, what we are seeing today, it's almost like somebody went and cut and pasted all of the issues out of the Bible, the end time issues, and then went right. Let's grab all these issues and create a real time theatre show rolling out these issues. That's what it looks like to me. But mainstream Christianity is not dealing with it in the right way. And in fact, I would say mainstream Christianity has been a big part of the problem. So if you would like to learn the truth and what the Bible actually says is going to happen, and who Jesus really was, not this mythological, airy-fairy, wispy Jesus, but Jesus, the real Son of God, who said, if you love me, keep my commandments, John 14, verse 15. And he also said, he's coming back. He's coming back, and he's coming soon, also in the Gospel of John. So if you'd like to join those Bible studies and find out more about all of those issues there, please email me at billy@ibc.net.nz. All right, family, back to editing. Do take care and keep the peace in your spirit. Thanks so much, and God bless.